My message is very simple. First of all, climate change is entirely natural. All the changes we've seen, and they're very small changes, are part of well-established long-term natural cycles. The idea that by changing our energy policy we can change the climate is just, I'm afraid, nonsense. The evidence is not there. It isn't like that. On the other hand, we have a government that has decided to spend a fantastic amount of money. The Climate Change Act is likely to cost about £700 billion. Put that in dollars, it's about $1 trillion over 40 years. This is an absurd amount of money on an entirely speculative scientific issue where the evidence is building up against the conventional view.
I got the feeling that there's a kind of British centricness to this conference, that people aren't so concerned about the planet and saving the world. They say Britain can survive on its own.
Well, I think that, the issue of climate change is a global issue. If the climate is changing, it's going to affect the whole world. If it isn't changing, then the whole world, or large parts of the world, and especially the European Union, is wasting a huge amount of money on a wild goose chase. I don't see it's particularly British, except that Britain does have this commitment to an 80% reduction in CO2 emissions by 2050. I don't think any other country in the world has a legal commitment of that kind. And frankly, we are crucifying ourselves, and we're crucifying ourselves on an issue that fewer and fewer people believe in. I represent 4.2 million people. More and more of those people are saying we don't believe it, we're not going to pay for it, and we're not going to vote for it.
Just to clarify, the issue isn't so much climate change, it's about man-made or man-influencing climate change.
Exactly. I don't like this term climate change deniers. Nobody that I know of denies the plain fact that the climate changes, always has changed, always will change. There are well-established records of climate cycles over the medium term and the long term. There's a sort of roughly 1,000-year cycle. There are longer cycles of ice ages and interglacials. The climate always changes. That's not the question. The question is, why is the climate changing? Is it a catastrophic change? Should we be worried about it? Are we causing it? Can we do anything about it? The answers are no, it's not catastrophic, no, we're not causing it, and no, we can't do anything about it. We can just waste unimaginable amounts of money pretending to ourselves that we can make a difference.
The last question I have, you seem to mention something about humans' propensity to be negative. There's a historical element to this.
There is, and in fact there have been so many scares that have been unfounded. So many of the predictions that were made in the 60s and 70s, especially by the environmental movement, life expectancy in America was going to go down to 42 years according to Paul Ehrlich because of chemicals. He and others were predicting that oil was going to run out by 1980, that we would all starve by 1990. If you go back and read these predictions now, they're laughable. The fact is, human ingenuity, human technology can always take us forward. If you assume that technology isn't going to change, then of course there are limits to growth and we'll run into the buffers. But technology does change, and throughout history we have always been able to take ourselves further forward. We are richer, we are living longer, we are healthier. On almost any criterion, things are, broadly speaking, getting better. And therefore this pessimism, the idea that the human race is doomed, that we're at a tipping point, that the world is going to get worse, it's about time we started looking at history, looking at realism, and realizing that if we hold our nerve and carry on, human ingenuity, human technology will carry us forward.
I guess Jung, when he talked about the collective unconscious, would say this is all because of previous civilizations, Atlantis, etc., previous Armageddons.
Well, I don't know why we have this predilection for pessimism. Of course disasters happen, of course we have wars and we have epidemics and things go wrong, but on all the broad measures of how well off human beings are, there are more of us, we are better fed, there is less poverty in the world now than there was 100 or 200 or 300 years ago. Things are broadly getting better. And yet again we have another group of people, this climate change hysteria, telling us that we stand on the edge of a tipping point and everything is going to collapse and everything is going to be a disaster. I say no, it's not.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.